She had always believed in love, the kind that withstands time, distance, and exhaustion. As a nurse, long shifts were part of her life, but she never thought they would create a gap between her and the man she loved. They had built something solid, a relationship grounded in trust and understanding. Or so she thought. Every morning, she kissed him goodbye, promising to make up for the lost time. He smiled, told her he understood, but lately, she noticed the way his eyes lingered, a quiet disappointment he never voiced. She reassured herself that things were fine. They had to be. Work was demanding, but she thrived in it. The controlled chaos of the hospital, the urgency of saving lives, it all gave her purpose. And then there was him. A doctor, confident yet kind, someone who saw the exhaustion in her and asked, "When was the last time you did something for yourself?" She laughed it off, but the question stayed with her. When was the last time she had felt seen, truly seen? Her partner loved her, but their conversations had become routine, discussing bills, groceries, and scheduling conflicts. The doctor, on the other hand, asked about her dreams, her frustrations, the things that made her eyes light up. It started as nothing. Small talk in the hallways, shared jokes after particularly brutal shifts. But there was something effortless about it. He remembered details about her, how she took her coffee, the way she rubbed her temples when stressed. These were things her partner used to notice. Now, he barely looked up from his phone when she walked in. She told herself it was harmless. Just a coworker, who happened to be easy to talk to. But when she caught herself checking her phone, hoping for a message from him, something inside her shifted. It wasn't just work anymore. At home, she felt the weight of it. Her partner would ask about her day, and she would give him the same tired answers. It was busy. Nothing new. She left out the parts about stolen glances, the way her heart raced when she saw that familiar name light up her screen. He must have noticed the distance, but he never pushed. Maybe he thought it was just stress. Maybe he trusted her too much to suspect anything. One night, after a particularly long shift, she hesitated before heading home. The doctor was still there, leaning against the counter, smiling as if he had been waiting for her. "You look exhausted," he said, voice low, familiar. She should have left. Should have walked away before whatever this was became something more. But she stayed. Just for a moment. Just long enough for something unspoken to settle between them. By the time she finally got home, her partner was asleep on the couch, waiting for her. She stood there, watching him, guilt pressing heavy on her chest. He had fallen asleep holding his phone, a half-typed message still glowing on the screen. "I miss you." She told herself it was nothing. Just a fleeting moment of weakness, a brief lapse in judgment. But the next day, when she saw his name on her phone, she didn't hesitate to open the message. "Rough night." It was simple, easy to ignore. But she didn't.
Yeah.
Could use a distraction. She stared at the words before hitting send, fingers hesitating over the screen. It wasn't flirting, not really. But when his reply came instantly, a joke about sneaking out for bad coffee, she smiled in a way she hadn't in a long time. Conversations with him were effortless, slipping into a rhythm that felt dangerously natural. What started as stolen moments at work turned into messages late at night, long after her partner had gone to bed. She convinced herself it wasn't wrong. They weren't doing anything. Just talking. But she knew better. The way she angled her phone away when a notification popped up. The way she lingered at the hospital, waiting for a chance to see him before going home. The way she started putting in more effort, fixing her hair, wearing perfume on shifts she knew he'd be on. She hadn't felt this alive in years. At home, the space between her and her partner grew wider. He noticed, of course he did, but he didn't say anything. Maybe he thought giving her space would bring her back. Maybe he was just too afraid of the answer if he asked what was wrong. One night, as she lay in bed beside him, his breathing slow and steady in sleep, her phone vibrated softly in her hand. "Can't sleep?" She hesitated for only a second before replying.
No.
She imagined him lying in his own bed, the same exhaustion weighing on him, but still reaching out to her. It was intoxicating, the attention, the understanding, the feeling of being wanted in a way that had nothing to do with routine or obligation. Meet me tomorrow after shift. Her heart pounded as she typed back. Okay. When she put her phone down, she turned to her partner, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest. He looked peaceful, unaware. A part of her wished he would wake up, see her like this, ask her what was wrong, force her to say it out loud. But he didn't. And she wasn't sure if she would have told the truth even if he had. She told herself she wouldn't go, that she would find an excuse, cancel at the last minute, pretend like none of this had ever started. But when her shift ended, she found herself walking toward him instead of the exit. He was waiting like he knew she would come. No words were needed. The way he looked at her, the way her pulse quickened. It was enough. They sat in his car, the air between them thick with something unspoken. A line had been drawn, and she knew she was about to cross it. He reached for her hand, fingers grazing her skin, and she didn't pull away. The first touch was electric. A slow unraveling of everything she had been holding back. A soft inhale, a hesitant pause, and then the inevitable. His lips met hers, and for the first time in a long time, she felt something other than exhaustion. Guilt came later. She drove home in silence, his touch still burning on her skin. Her hands gripped the wheel too tightly, her reflection in the rearview mirror unfamiliar. She had thought about this moment 100 times, wondered how it would feel, but she never imagined the weight of it. Her partner was in the kitchen when she walked in, stirring a pot on the stove. He turned, smiled, so unaware, so trusting. "Hey," he said. "I made dinner." Her stomach twisted. She forced a smile, stepping closer, pressing a kiss to his cheek. It felt wrong. Foreign. "Thanks," she murmured, avoiding his eyes. She sat across from him at the table, nodding at his stories, laughing at the right moments, all while replaying what she had done. The taste of another man still lingered on her lips, and she hated how much she wanted more. That night, when he reached for her in bed, she flinched. It was small, barely noticeable, but he felt it. His hand hesitated before he pulled away, exhaling softly in the dark. She lay awake long after he had fallen asleep, staring at the ceiling, feeling the walls of her life closing in. She had crossed the line, and there was no going back. She thought she could pretend, act like nothing had changed, like she wasn't unraveling every time she looked at him. But the guilt seeped into everything. The way she spoke, the way she moved, the way she avoided his touch without meaning to. He noticed. At first it was subtle. The way his eyes lingered on her a little too long, the way he hesitated before asking how her day was. Then came the silences, the pauses where words should have been, the questions he wanted to ask but didn't. One night, as she was getting ready for bed, he stood in the doorway, watching her. "Are you happy?" She froze, toothbrush in hand, heart pounding. The question was simple, but the weight of it crushed her. "Of course," she lied. He didn't look convinced. He just nodded, as if filing the moment away, collecting all the small signs she thought she had hidden. The next day, she saw the doctor again. He smiled, touched her arm lightly, and for the first time, it didn't feel exciting. It felt suffocating. She had risked everything for this, and now, all she could feel was the slow, creeping realization that she had made a mistake. She pulled away. He noticed. "Regrets?" he asked. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. That night, she came home to find her partner sitting at the table, phone in hand, an unread message glowing on the screen. Her heart stopped. "Who is he?" His voice was quiet. Too quiet. She opened her mouth, but no words came. There was no point in lying. It was all over. He didn't yell, didn't demand explanations. He just stood up, walked past her, and disappeared into the bedroom. The sound of the door closing behind him was louder than any screaming could have been. She sat at the table, staring at nothing, feeling the weight of everything she had lost settle onto her shoulders. She had chased something fleeting and lost something real. And now, she had to live with it.